New tonight, a Honduran man will spend more than a year in federal prison following an ICE raid last summer in Omaha. 37-year-old Marvin Zepeda is sentenced to 14 months. A federal jury previously convicted him for assaulting a federal officer. His charges stem from the ICE operation at Glen Valley Foods last June. Law enforcement helped carry out a search warrant at Glen Valley, where they say they found Zepeda hiding in a crawl space. Authorities say that he refused to obey orders to surrender himself, and as they approached him, he armed himself with a utility knife. Officials eventually took Zepeda into custody. After he finishes his sentence, he'll be deported to Honduras. The U.S.